Howdy, peeps. Today, well, what happened today? Okay, so it's raining. You look outside, it's wet out there. John went to I forgot what band it was. He went to a crazy concert last night and probably got a little messed up and he could not make it to work today. He is the fork truck man, and a good one at that. But Carrie and Eric, they do the grading. And two of them grades here so they can take their time and make good decisions and upgrades and all that good mess. But Carrie, the guy ripping and throwing stuff on the line there, he's the old fork truck guy, and he was damn good at that too. Pardon the French. But Carrie, he come up to me that morning, he said, all right, now listen. He said, either you're going to grade or you're going to fork truck. And of course, I've been dying to finally get the chance to grade. I suck at it. I'm slow at it. But Eric, the guy standing beside me grading, Eric has all the patience in the world. He's a very good, genuine person. And Carrie's like me. Carrie, I don't know if Carrie has the patience to teach anybody anything. Because the guy ripping, let me tell you something about Carrie. He wants it done right. And he wants it done right, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So what I'm going to do is Eric's been training on me. I'm terrible at grading, but I know the rules within reason. I know most of the rules without having to look them up, but some rules I have to look up. And what you get to is a lot of math. Grading lumber it's a lot of math. It's a hard learned skill. And I've been dying to finally get to learn it some. And with Eric's patience, and Carrie said he'll jump on the fork truck and give me one day, I'm not going to waste this day. Let's see if I can figure this out. But all this would be is a good way for you to make me look bad.
It is.
Okay, so let's get into this. Now what we're sawing is poplar, tulip tree, the Indiana state tree. We grow a lot of it down here in the southern part of the state. I'd say the southern half of the state for sure. I can't speak for you northerners, so I don't know about y'all. Now, you're seeing me on some of these, I believe they're 10 foot. Them's 10 foot fat faces on them. And you can see by the big open area, that's a butt log, what you're looking at. On these big faces, sometimes on the lug chain over there, when they transfer back over, the lugs get messed up. And that's why I had to pull them back with a little hooky doodad board grabber whatchamacallit. Okay, so that being said, we're in poplar. So we're sawing poplar. How do I break this to somebody that's never, those of you that's not familiar with this at all? The way hardwood lumber is sewed, that's what we saw. The way hardwood lumber is sewed, there's there's a rule. There's the lumber cops. You know, every system has a regulatory doodad. So our regulatory doodad in hardwood lumber is the NHLA, National Hardwood Lumbermen's Association. No, maybe it's just Lumber Association. I don't know. It's the NHLA. Basically, they're the cops for hardwood lumber that's being sold across the globe. So it don't matter if you're sawing in Africa or you're sawing in Indiana, your hardwood lumber is sold on the NHLA standards. If you're shipping across the continents and stuff like that, in different countries and everything, and interstate, you know, and all over that mess. So everybody's grade rules is based off the NHLA grade rules. Now, look above Eric's head up there, above Steven's head right there. He's the one wearing the bandana. If you look up above his head on the ceiling hanging down there, there is a chart that we hang down that's got the NHLA grade rules on it. And what you got is grades of lumber. That's how you're selling it. Now, a really clear highest grade of board you can sell is called a FAS. Free and, let's see, what does FAS stand for? Daggone it. Benji, if you watch this, don't call me up on my phone and rip me out, because I can't remember all the mess. There is so much to know about grading lumber. Free face. Daggone it. I'll have to look up. Maybe I'll write on the screen if I look it up here real quick. If I can find my book. But anyway, your highest grade is FAS. We call it face, or FAS or one face. Okay. FAS is a board that is 83% clear. Now, what we're selling in hardwood lumber is clear face cuttings. Hardwood lumber gets sold to make furniture, cabinets, trim, flooring. That pretty much, and very little hardwood lumber gets sold as structure. Like your houses are made out of softwood, but what you look at in your house, the beauty part of your house, is made out of hardwood. So if you have an old rocking chair that Grandpa had, it's probably made out of hardwood. The cabinets you got in your kitchen, probably made out of hardwood. If you got trim hanging up in your house, though we have some pine in our house, most of it's hardwood. Oaks and stuff like that. You know, you hear people talk about hickory cabinets, rustic hickory cabinets, and rustic white oak, fancy European white oak style, this, that, or the other. You know, that's, you know, and poplar accepts stain real well, and it's a cheaper wood. So a lot of people makes trim out of poplar, even the painted trim, which don't do painted trim. If you got a house, you're going to trim it. We got some painted trim in our house, but don't paint it. Don't stain that wood, or don't, you know, just finish that wood. Let people see the wood. The wood is a thing of beauty. That's what a lot of people don't seem to get, I feel like, is the beauty of the wood. Look at that board I'm getting ready to do. Not that one. That's an 8-foot cut in a one face. Okay, the one Eric's getting ready to flip. Bam! Look how beautiful the grain is in that poplar wood. You know, you finish that, you cherish that. That's what I'm telling you. Everybody needs to fall in love with their wood. It's beautiful. Mother Nature made this stuff. And a lot of people, you know, that's against the cutting and stuff like that. And we're doing 90-something% of what goes through this sawmill is under the it's Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI program. You know, and classified forest, that type of thing. So what we're doing is sustainable wood. We're not depleting rainforests. We're not doing none of this mess. What we harvest and mill is basically gardening. We're woods gardening. That's what we do. We treat the woods as a garden. Well, that's not what this video is about. But basically, so this wood is, most of it's all brought from a sustainable. This wood that we're looking at is off of a naval base that has been properly managed since the 40s, the early 40s. Actually, this naval base, I was just riding with them the other day. This naval base they started this naval base right at World War II. So a lot of this wood that you're seeing, now this poplar's crappy poplar. You can see a lot of defects, which is unsound wood. But this is crappy poplar. A lot of this is growed. It's large poplar, but it's poplar don't like sunlight, intense sunlight. Poplar likes the canopy, and poplar likes the fact that the canopy shades, keeps the shade on the ground, so it's not hot site material. Poplar likes a cool site. Look at that. Whack! Cut that end off. You see that dope and stuff on the end? So what that is a face one face, is what I just marked on that wide board. So let me get into grades. So I'm skipping around a lot. I'm trying to find my purpose here. So your poplar, Tater, you're gonna need to do an 8-foot section. Now 8 foot is it? Yep, there he goes. What are you gonna do? Rip it. Rip it! Bam! 6-incher. Ha ha! So anyways, poplar, I'm sorry, I need to quit looking at the screen while I'm doing the talking. So your face grade, which is your, and what he's doing is he's getting ready to rip that board too. What are you doing? What are you doing? You gonna do it, Eric? Yep, he's gonna rip it at, I didn't catch it. Okay, he's gonna rip it. He's gonna rip that knot out of that board, and then he's gonna cut an edging strip off of it. And now we're getting caught up for a minute, so because we're running pal stock out up top, and I'm gonna do some ripping down here. So so basically, you're cutting clear face cuttings out of the board. That's an 8-inch rip right there you just did, and that's gonna be a rip also. He's measuring it right now. Let's say a 9-incher. Yep, it's a 9-incher. So you take these boards and you're hacking on them and you're chopping on them and you're ripping on them, and you're trying to make these boards as pretty as possible, because an FAS board or a face one face, them boards are 83% clear. The 83% of the surface area of the board is clear. But there's also some technicalities on what size cuttings that you're calling a clear cutting. So when you cut around a knot, there is a lot of rules on what's okay, what's not okay to call a clear face cutting. And then there's split rules, there's Wayne rules, there's in FAS there's a 1 foot rule on the end. There's mineral rules on the mineral of the tree. You know, a tree grown under stress, and a lot of this poplar was stressed. You'll see some purple in this at times, and I'll try to remember to say something. But poplar, when it's stressed, it gets purple mineral in it. And the mineral rules limit. I want to pause here a second. As I'm editing back through this, I'm starting to catch up on all the bull mess I'm doing on my, my yakking. Okay, this poplar come from the naval base. The naval base was bought from farmers and people and homesteaders and stuff that was going broke and busted back in the 40s, the Great Depression, not in the 40s and the 30s. In the Great Depression, because they was kind of starving off their farms. They wasn't putting back, that was back in the day of the sod busters and all that mess. Just look at your history. But anyways, this poplar growed back from a field. I could tell when Derek was cutting it. I remember when Stevie was cutting it up and Derek was cutting it with Titus, and I was on the boom that day, and I told Stevie, I said, this poplar is cutting out crappy up here at the yard. This poplar growed back on a hot site, which was basically Mother Nature reclaiming farm ground. So you're seeing a lot of stress in this poplar. Now the next generation of poplar, we cut it pretty hard in the area we cut it, but the next generation of poplar that's coming back, where Derek just cut the other day, will be good poplar. The ground's cooled down, it's been revived, and it's ready to grow timber again. So that's why you're seeing the mineral, the dope, the stress that was in this wood. Now back to the vidget. Are like 12%. I mean, it's ridiculously low what amount of minerals allowed in the poplar. Look at the poplar that just come through the dealer. The one I'm putting now. Did you see that little bit of purple on there where the sapwood meets the heartwood? That little bit purple is mineral. The board that just come through the dealer there, towards me down there, is mineral. See that little bit of purple there? That's mineral. The one on board I just stepped on, look at the purple down there. Eric's getting ready to grab a hold of. Now that board's okay on mineral limitations because it's less than 12% of the board by just a little bit. But so mineral's an issue. But the smallest, oh, look at that. That's gonna be a face. Bam! So the circles are face. The circle with the slash is face one face. Now what face one face mean is one side of the board is a face cutting, and that slash I just made through that circle, that makes that a face one face. And what I did was cut 8. I'm gonna stop it one more time, and I promise you this is gonna be the last time I stop the video. You're wondering, okay, so the minimum length and width of a face board is 8 foot long, 6 inches wide. So a lot of the decisions we're making with the chops and stuff like that, if you're really studying this, you're wondering, how do they know the length of the board? There's 2 green laser lights that sets right in front of us there on the line, and you can't see it in this video. If you zoom in, maybe you can see it, I don't know. But if we pull them boards out, them laser lights, if the laser lights are shining down, so when we're looking at the board, we can see they got it boxed in of what actually is an 8 foot long minimum length. So when we're trying to make a face decision, which is what you want everything to be, which is not, but you want it to, you got the laser lights boxed in there so you can see what clear wood fits in between that 8 foot spot. So if you so say you got a board that's got trash on both ends, dote on one end, knots on the other, you can pull it out, you can mark the dote off one end, and then slide your mark up against one of the laser lights, and you see if the other end's clear to where you can squeeze an 8 footer out of there and chop that board up in different manners and turn that into a face. So, all right, I'll shut up, and that's the last time I'll stop the video, I promise. Foot off of that. What are you gonna do, Eric? Is he gonna kill me? Cause basically I'm pushing. So the board on one side is a face board, but on the second side it's a 1 common, which is the next grade down. And a 1 common board is 66 1/3% clear. So, and it also, a 1 common has different cutting limitations inside the board. So a cutting is pieces of that board that when you sell it, people's going to take that and cut it into blanks for furniture. So a lot of these boards, like a face one face, or yeah, pretty much a face one face. Let's say you got a board that's a face one face and it's 83% clear. The other side's a 1 common, don't matter. You're going to put that up against the wall of your house, and you're going to take the long look at the one Eric's getting ready to grab. That one. Bam! Look at Eric's board. Oh, that's a beauty. That's a face. No, he called it. Okay, so that board Eric flipped obviously was a 1 common cause of mineral limitations. But if that didn't have the mineral in it, that would have been a face board. So basically in Poplar, I know what it's getting ready to be used for. It's probably going to be used for is trim. No, it's going to Jasper. Okay, so that might be used for furniture, but a lot of cases in Poplar, your face boards, and you will turn that into trim and stuff like that. Long blanks of trim. Cut a little bit off, Wade. Cut a little bit off the end. He's going to cut a little bit off that end. About 1.5 feet. Oh, look at the mineral. Eric left that as a 1 common because it's got too much mineral in it. See, I would have tried to cut the end off of that maybe, but I'm too liberal on mineral. Now, Eric knows his stuff, I don't. So when you see him override my grade, that's pretty much he's right and I'm wrong. You can take that to the bank. I'm just doing my best. Now what I did is I cut the end of that off. So when you make a mark and then you put an X on the trash, that's cutting the bad part off of that board to make that board make the best grade it can make. And then Steven and Red, they're cutting the trash off the end of it, you know. there's a mineral issue. So I'm gonna rip the mineral out of this one. What'd I do? What was that, 8 or 7? I couldn't see. So anyways, your best grade's face, and then a face 1 face, because usually they get packed in the same pack. So usually the price difference is not much. Now in Poplar, a 1 common is half the price. So the next grade down, so if you go from an 83% clear board down to a 66 and a 1/3% clear board, you dock the price of that board by 50%. If that tells you how hard you're trying to. So basically, you can cut 50%. I could take a 16-foot board and cut 8 foot off of it and throw 8 foot in a chipper, and daggone there'd be a head. Or, you know, daggone there'd be, if you see what I mean. So that gives you all an understanding of what you're doing. Now, when you get down to the common grades, 1 common, if they don't put a mark on a board, that makes it a 1 common. So 1 common, 66 and a 1/3% clear, with the cutting, as long as it meets its cutting rules. You got to meet your cutting rules. Your minimum size cutting on a common board is 2 inches wide, 3 inches wide by 2 foot long. And depending on the surface area of the board, that's what tells you how many cuttings you get. So the bigger the board, the wider the board, the longer the board, the more cuttings you get in that board to make that grade. So big boards are great. Small boards, not so much. Small boards, you pretty much play the board as it lies. On a big board, you can chop on it, you can rip on it. Sometimes, we had a lot of boards this day that you're watching this, not on this video, but on the day that we're running here. We took a lot of 16-footers and cut them in half and made 2 8-footers. The bottom board be face. The next board be either 1 common or 2 common. There's not a lot of price difference between 1 common and 2 common. I think there was, in Poplar, there was 7 cents. So you didn't do a lot of chopping around to make a 2 common board or 1 common board if you're chopping mess off of it and throwing it in a trough. But if you're making a 1 common board into a face board, you could chop almost 50% of the board off and throw it in a chipper and still be a head. So that's what ties into it. It's how much of the board. Now when you do a rip, like right there I did a rip, but that was probably the side, the wane towards me on the camera was probably going in a chipper. But a lot of times in a rip, you can rip a board. So say you got a board, if it comes on, I'll tell you. Some boards you can rip right in the middle on a wide board, and you didn't lose any footage, but half the board went to face, which got your 50% more value in it, and then half of it go right into 1 or 2 common. Or there was a couple boards that actually was cull. We cut, and I don't know what's going on up there, Fry or Hartwick, but some of the cans got half. So like a board I got my hand on, we got some of them that was half the board. We ripped half the board, and 1/2 went actually into cull, and 1/2 the board went into face. So that's basically somebody not boxing the hearts, what that boiled down to up at the resolve. So so everybody works together to do what they can to make what they can out of the lumber. That's called exit, Tater. That's called exit. This here is, now, to make a face board, which is what you want every board to be. Everybody wants every board to be a face, but God, just don't make them that way. You know, cut 2 foot off there. What'd I say? 10 foot? No, 8 foot. I said cut 8 foot. So when I do that, it means it's telling Steven down there to pull. Let's see if Steven cuts that one. That wide one I marked on. Let's see what Steven does. Because I'm just now doing this in the editor. That was a solid face that I just marked. That's going to be, it ain't going to make 2 common, make an X out of it. That's 2 common. Nope. The pin knots. Oh, the pin knots in Poplar, they get you. Because if it's smaller than a pencil eraser, they're taking it at the place we're selling it. But if it's bigger than a pencil eraser, a knot, it's bad. That, because of surface area, I called that a too common. And Eric agreed, but you can tell he's sitting there thinking about it. So what you get into, that's a rip. I'm trying to rip that mineral out of that board and try to make it... No, I chopped it. So what you can't see in the camera on this end must be a little bit better, where you can chop it and get something out of it. And Eric did call me a board hog today. He said, "You're a daggone board hog." I said, "I know, I'm having a blast. And I'm trying to grade as many of them as I can so he can double check them and make sure, you know, so he's a teacher and I'm trying to do as much as I can to learn as much as I can. Now I'm riding 8 foot. That means for Steven to cut 8 foot off the top of that. Because you're chopping stuff all these boards right and left to try to up the value of the good wood left in the board. He's second guessing that. Was you okay with that? I think he was. Okay, I called that a face. And I should have made a face one face. The price difference in between face and face one face is minute. So what I did is I took the lazy man's way out. When I did a board there, Steven. Grab it, Steven. No, that wasn't the board I thought he was going to do. I guess Red might be getting that board when he puts it in the stack. Okay, I think Steven's got the board now. See what he does with it. Does he grab the saw? Bam! Steven, get... Nope. It's not for that... Not for that board. There it is. There's one he's getting ready to chop the crap out of. Yep, see him, went down there and done it. Okay. Them boys are good boys now. I don't know how many stackers we got. I think we got 5 pulling down here. And they're all working their butts off because we got a lot of upgrades and stuff that's going on. And there I'm saying chop the end off of that so it can make a face. So these guys are chopping. The cart right beside Eric is the rip cart. So we fill it up, and then see the rip saw sitting over there running? It's waiting for one of us to get us a minute. Yeah, rip it, Tater. See how the knots are on one end of the board? As long as I can make a 6-inch face on half the board, I can take half that board I just marked to rip. When we rip it, half of that board I marked will be face, and I'd say half of it will be, depending on the other side of, it's probably going to be too common. Which, to go with half the board face, half the board too common, more than likely, Fryer Hartwick's got something going on upstairs. And now I put 8 foot. See, now 8 foot's your minimum length on a face board, or a FAS board. 6 inches wide by 8 foot long is the minimum it can be to make top-notch grade. But now once you get in a common grade, you can go all the way down to, well, technically you can go down to 3 inches wide by 4 foot long. But we don't do that. Usually in common grades, we'll drop down to 3 inches wide by 6 foot long. If you can get a board to do that, that's your minimum size of a common grade. But to get that to make it in one common, it'll pretty much have to be totally clear. I wish they could all look like that. See, I want to make that a 2 common that I just flipped over. 2 common is 50% clear. Ooh, I made it a 1. Let's see what Eric does with it. Let's see what Eric does with this board right here. I bet he makes it a 2. He made it a 2, and he cut some wane off the end. Now, a lot of times you can cut some defect off the end of the board, so you reduce the amount of surface area of the board that's got unsound wood on it. And unsound wood is rot, pith, shaker, wane. And sound wood that's admitted in a clear face cutting is mineral, sapwood, heartwood, and burls. Did I get all that right? I think I got all that right. So there's limitations on And there's limitations on mineral. Every species got a different mineral limitation, best I can recall. But pretty much you keep your book with you, and then you grade the different species. You check up on your book, and there's clauses in there for each species. It's kind of like a small DOT handbook. It's kind of what it is. And I bet Eric chops the end of that off to make grade. He ripped it, I think. Can't remember what he done. I didn't see. So I made an X there to cut off about 2 foot of that board so it'd make a face, one face. And a lot of times, because of the lack of price difference, I'll go ahead and cop out and make a face, one face on a board that could be a FAS, but the price difference don't matter. So in case I mess up, I'm erring to the side of caution. See, Eric's double checking that one. And nope. He's chopping that off and making a face on that far end. There must have been Wayne on the other end. But anyways, I hope y'all like this. Have a good one. Leave me comments. Let me know what you think. Later on.